How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all having a great day. And also, thank you so much for your patience as I have been gone for a couple of months. This video is actually pretty important because I wanted to explain to you how to avoid burnout in game development, and if you're in a little bit of burnout, how to deal with it and get out of it quickly. Because I had a little bit of burnout myself in game development over this fall season, and I wanted to share all of the newfound knowledge that I had with you. So I hope you stick around to watch the video, and here we go. The objective of this video is to help you avoid burnout, but in order to do that, I need to explain to you exactly what causes burnout. So to start off, I wanted to talk to you about what I did from March of 2020 to August of 2020. Here is the story of my experience. Back in March of 2020, I was finishing up my college semester. I'm a computer science student, and there was this crazy final project for one of my classes, which entailed about 60 hours a week for the last month of classes. And then, following that, were finals, and then boom, summer break began. Now, we were remote at this time, so I was pretty much home the entire time. Now, of course, summer is the time when most students go and get a job or an internship before they graduate. But because of the sickness that was going on, I decided to instead focus going full-time on YouTube and game development. And here's where the first problem began. Literally, the day after finals, I hopped right into it, and I didn't take any breaks in between the end of school and the beginning of my adventures in YouTube and game development. Now, this is the first problem, which is that I didn't take any breaks in between large sessions of work. Now, for this, I started working on a game, again, that I started working on initially in November, and I began making YouTube videos again on a channel that I haven't really made videos on in the past 2 years. So from all of this, I hopped off of one large work session into another large work session. So that was problem number one. And then, when I started working, I pretty much continued on through that the entire time without taking any breaks. Well, you might be thinking, well, fine, just take breaks whenever you want. Well, not exactly, because it's not as easy as you think. Something that is much better is scheduling your breaks and actually having them be along your project workflow. So there is this type of workflow that many companies use, which is called agile development. And agile development contains something called sprints. Sprints is a technique where teams create smaller goals along the timeline of their larger project that builds up to their ultimate goal, which is finishing their project. Now, this relates very heavily to game development, because in game development, you have to accumulate a bunch of smaller tasks to complete your game. There isn't just one large thing that you work on. And at the end of each sprint, the team is done with their short-term goal, and later on, they move on to the next one. Something that I also like to do at the end of my sprints is to take a short break. Whether it's a day or a weekend, I always like to give my mind time to reset and focus on the next task at hand. Now, the problem that I did was I didn't really do this over the summer just because I was so motivated to make videos and work on my game that I didn't think about the long-term capabilities of myself, and that I wouldn't be able to maintain just constantly working the entire time. Now, I believe I did average maybe around 60 or so hours a week from week to week without taking any breaks. So that is the lesson that I learned, and that I will tell you is take breaks and schedule them, because no matter how motivated you are, if you push yourself too hard, you will burn out. And even if you're the most motivated person ever, you might just not have the energy to work on something if you're burnt out. So far, everything that I mentioned with agile and sprints mainly pertains to large projects with lots of people. But if you are a team of one, like me, there is a second thing that you should avoid tremendously, and that is biting off more than you can chew, or being too ambitious with your game. Rust Belt, a sci-fi horror game where the player needs to escape the compound with the mysterious phaser beam. All of the game development was made, so far, by one person, and that is me. Big mistake. Even though I have the skills and work ethic to finish the game, looking back, the project was just too large for one person to reasonably undertake. which is why right now I'm trying my best to simplify the game so that I can actually complete the game and get it out to everyone. When you start new projects, don't be overly ambitious. Know your limits and stick to them. The goal is to completely finish your game, no matter how simple it needs to be. So if you are one person and you only have enough time and energy to complete a simple platformer within a few months, go for that. If you know that your limits are higher and you can make a much larger game, but only if you absolutely know that you can do it, and it requires a lot of proper planning, which is something that I didn't do right off the bat with this game. If you know that you can do that and you've done other smaller projects in the past, then do that. But if you're just starting out, I would highly recommend making a super simple and small game that you know that you can finish on your own time without needing to burn out. So those are 2 mistakes that I made when I was working on my game and making YouTube videos over the summer. Now let's say that you also made those mistakes and now you're trying to deal with burnout. Here is how you can recover and get back to where you were. The most obvious one is to take a break. Don't do anything related to what caused you to burn out during your break. This way, when you finally get back to it, you'll be able to put huge amounts of passion back into your project when you're done with your break. Second, potentially re-evaluate your goals with your game. If you knew that you were working on a project that is just too large, then you need to scale it down a little bit and make it a bit more simple. That way, when you are working on your game, you just aren't overwhelmed by a huge amount of tasks that need to get done over the next few months or years. Avoid the factors that gave you burnout in the first place, which in this case might be having a project that is just too big. That's what I'm doing with my game. I'm making it more simple so that I have less tasks and are less overwhelmed by the tasks in order to finish the actual game. And my final tip is to be sure to focus on your own health first. You might be able to make small sacrifices for your project in the short term or at the end of your project, but if you let those small health sacrifices build up, then that is a recipe for disaster. So throughout your project, please make sure that you continue to eat healthy food, drink a lot of water, exercise regularly, and get a lot of sleep, but not too much sleep. And if you have those 3 things in mind, you can be sure to get out of burnout and get back to your project as soon as possible with tons of passion. And if you currently aren't burnt out, then these things will help you avoid that and continue working on your passions and your goals and your game, or any other project that you're doing. This doesn't apply directly to game development. This applies to pretty much any challenging task or project that you're working on. I really hope this helped you, and if it did, please consider subscribing for more game development related videos. All of you are awesome people, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.